Hi everyone, I'm back again. Get you a little bit of information about what I've got in my collection. Figured the best way to start with that is to actually put a late entry into the vinyl tag for this year. So that's what I'm going to do today. So first off, Discovery made in 2020. I would go with The Longest Johns. There it is. I found this one because I was looking around at the end of December. All the sea shanties were coming online. And I started looking around for some more, and I found these guys, and the first track on this album, Hoist Up the Thing, kind of caught my interest. So with my collection on comedy and novelty, of course I would get that one. So the next question in the list, a quarantine buy. So probably in December when I started looking around, seeing if there was anyone else who was collecting comedy and novelty records. I looked online and I didn't see anyone, but I did see a recommendation for this record, Let's All Sing with the Chipmunks, starring David Seville with the Chipmunks. And this is an early record, as you can tell from the animation here. It's not the Chipmunks that we're all used to. But the other thing that got me to buy it was the video that I saw about it. Noted it was on clear red vinyl, so of course I had to have that. I'm kind of a sucker for the colored vinyl and the little fun little tricks like that. So I had to get that one, and I got it. So that's my quarantine buy. So the next on the list we have an LP you want to find in 2021. Well, in the last week or so, my YouTube recommendations have come up with a bunch of videos with John Cleese and Marty Feldman from the late 60s era. Started looking into it further, and yeah, they were in a group together before Monty Python, along with Graham Chapman and a couple other people, Brooke Taylor and Amy McDonald, according to my notes here, and they put out a record in 1967 called At Last, the 1948 Show. That was released in 1967, and Monty Python formed in 1969. And it was kind of fun to see Marty Feldman and John Cleese do the bookshop sketch, which became a pretty popular Monty Python sketch. So the next one that on the list is a box set. I'm flipping back and forth between the notes here and my camera's view so I can make sure everything's in frame. The Spike Jones set. This is, I think, 3 albums, 3 records. Yeah, three records. I was so used to CDs because that's what I've been buying most lately. This one I got in December. This is Spike Jones and the City Slickers from the television show that he had. So it's not the studio recordings that everyone's used to. What I really like the most about this one is that there's one track on here. I think it's Minka here on record 3, side A. There's one track where Spike Jones, he was a studio drummer. And one of the tracks that really caught my ear from the television show a long time ago was one where he and his trumpeter, George Rock, they just went off and just started playing. And Spike is there playing on his drums and whatever's in front of him. George Rock is playing on the trumpet. They go through a medley of like 6 or 7 different songs, and it's just fantastic musicianship. And I'm glad to have that on a record now instead of my bootleg tape from the TV a long time ago. So next one is a concept album. This was a little harder for me because, comedy records usually aren't considered concept albums. Until I started thinking about it more, I finally came down to this one, The First Family by Vaughn Meader. Get that in frame there. This was released, I think it was 1962, either 61 or 62. It was the first record of its kind that really parodied the president's family in the U.S. So that's why I consider it a concept album. It was successful, and it led to a follow-up, The First Family Volume 2, and a couple of others based on Russian families. So there's The Other Family, and there's At Home with That Other Family. So these records, they sold a lot, but the first two especially, The First Family and The First Family Volume 2, released in 61-62, in November 1963, they were pulled from shelves. I the story that I read was that the remaining stock was destroyed. They're still so common; you can still find them pretty easily at thrift shops. I usually find 2 or 3 of them when I go out thrifting. The follow-up records are not quite as common, but it was, I think, like the second or third most released comedy album in the 1960s. Second or third behind Bob Newhart's Button Down Mind, which I've also got a couple of those in my collection. Because if you're doing a comedy collection, you got to have that. But yeah, so The First Family is my choice for the concept album. So the next, I actually have to go to the CDs. An album where an artist band changed directions. Well, I don't have one album, but I'll show you a string of albums from a local band here that I know personally. I've gone to a lot of their concerts and done a few things. Actually contributed to one of the CDs that they put out with some of my photography and design work. So the band is Harmonious Whale. This is their first album, and this one is just kind of vintage jazz, just like it says in the little note there. So they've got Exactly Like You, Tico Tico, Basin Street Blues on there. And then they went into, they were most known around here for Gypsy Swing, which is, get the glare off there. So this Gypsy Swing is a style based on Django Reinhardt and Stéphane Grappelli. French 1920s, 30s jazz, into the 40s even. Small group jazz, really hot stuff. And then they released a couple of other albums. So there's Live at the ZMF and Nonchalant, still doing kind of gypsy swing. But then Maggie, the lead singer and the percussionist of the group, started writing songs of her own, and Sims wrote some songs of his own as well, and they've been releasing more of those. So here are 2 of their more recent issues, The Vegan Zombie's Lament and Resist Temptation. These 2 have some of the songs that they've written, which kind of depart from the gypsy swing style. They're still good songs, but it shows, that transition shows in the series of records there. Let's see, next thing on the list, a white label promo. I've got several of those, and the first thing I thought of was this one. This is Firesign Theater. It's promotional LP, not for sale. It is short bits from That Sidelong Drama, as someone wrote up here for the DJs, from the Nick Danger Third Eye series. So that was the first one that I thought of, but then looking through my records to find that one, I found this one, Chevy Chase. Not only is it white label, but it's one-sided white label. So it's got three songs on here. There's Short People, I Shot the Sheriff, and Rapper's Plight. So I need to listen to that one again. So those are a couple of the white label promos that I've got. Next on the list is a compilation album, and this one I've got a couple of copies. It's the Laughing Stock of the BBC. This one has one bit that we still quote in our family. Which one was it? It's not with the Pythons, but it references the Pythons. I think it's this one with the 2 Ronnies. They're talking about the new religious release starring our Lord J.C. John Cleese. So all about Monty Python. So it's every time we see our Lord J.C., we think John Cleese in this house. So the next one on the list is an album that tells a story. All right, so as I put in my intro video yesterday, I had a radio show on KUCR for a few years, and the only band that would come on, or the only guest that I was able to bring in, was Victor Banana. I got them on the show because I got this record from what was then my favorite record store in Redondo Beach, called Round Sounds. They're no longer there. But they had this record, and I was in there often enough that the owner just said, "Here, you'll like this." So I bought it, and yes, I liked it. And on the back, it had an address, so I just wrote to them and said, "Hey, would you like to come onto the radio show with me?" And Their lead, the lead singer, Tim Hensley, came on and did a segment on my 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. morning show, and he brought in some of his favorite records, and we had fun. And then he signed the record for me. So there's my record story for today. So the next thing on the list is an album that needs a vinyl pressing. Well, the first thing that I thought of was a CD that I got a couple years ago, Strong Bad Sings and Other Type Hits. But then I saw a video either yesterday or the day before that there is a vinyl version of that coming out this year. So that one's taken care of. So instead, I'm going to go with this one, Richard Cheese. See if we can get the glare off of there. Lounge Against the Machine. So it's cover versions of heavy metal and rage and lounge and rage songs and punk songs done in a lounge style. So this, just looking on the back here, we've got and those who collect rage and metal will know these titles better than I do. Rape Me, Last Resort, Creep, Bullet, the Blue Sky, Closer, Come Out and Play, Holiday in Cambodia. I recognize the tunes when I hear them, but I don't know them right off because I don't collect that type of music. But this is just fun, and I'd love to see this on vinyl. So the next thing on the list here is a common album and an uncommon album. Well, the common album was pretty easy. I'm going with Allan Sherman, My Son the Celebrity. And the reason I'm going with this one is I've got several copies of it. There's actually 4 copies in my collection, but I could only put my hands on 3 right away. So when I'm out thrifting, this is one that I see all the time. And I was down to a point where, okay, do I have that or not? Well, I don't know. I better get it. It's only $1 or 50 cents. I might as well get it. So I've got 4 copies of that one. So that's a common album. An uncommon album, this is one that I found recently thrifting. Rippling Rhythm by Shep Fields. There we go. So this is kind of lounge, kind of waltz, kind of polka, a little mix of all of that, like you would get on, what was that? Lawrence Welk. Is that kind of music on here. So Shep Fields there is showing off the little cup that he put water in, and he blew bubbles in for some of the songs. So you hear some of that on this record. This is a pretty straightforward record, and shout out to another recent joiner of the vinyl community. That was a blind buy for me. So I saw that one and said, okay, this has got to be funny. So I figured I'd better get it. But then I got it home and listened to it. It's not very funny, but I'm glad I got it in my collection. All right, so the next one on the list, an EP. All right, well, when I was thinking about what I've got, I remembered the cover was pink, and I remembered it was a female artist. I couldn't quite remember what it was, but then, oh yeah, of course, Julie Brown, Goddess in Progress. This is an EP with side 1, I Like 'Em Big and Stupid, and The Homecoming Queen's Got a Gun. And on side 2, we've got Will I Make It Through the 80s, 'Cause I'm a Blonde, and Earth Girls Are Easy. So good old Downtown Julie Brown is my EP pick. And let's see, going back to the notes here, the next one, an album cover you love. Well, I said it earlier, I'm kind of a sucker for gimmicks. So I'm going to go with the Bonzo Dog Band, Tadpole. And I like this one because it's a die cut. And you can see as you pull on the inner sleeve, you can see the eyes move back and forth here and on the top. And then on Neil Innes over here, there's nothing there until you pull it further out, and then the music starts going through his mind. So that was fun. So that's one example of an album cover that I love just for the novelty of it. Let's see, next on the list we've got, let's see, album cover you love, an album that you've listened to the most. Well, my favorite regular straight ahead rock band would be They Might Be Giants. So I'm going with Flood. And this is the picture disc that I just got a year or two ago. I don't remember when I got it, but this was another recent acquisition. I listened to this very soon after getting the new microgroove stylus for my turntable. So once I got that, I had to listen to some They Might Be Giants. Looking through my collection, most of what I've got, or in fact all of the rest of what I've got from them, is on CD. And so far that's the only one I've got on vinyl. Looking back to the list here, an album that you had to get an OG copy of. I'm going with another one that's you'll know one or two of the songs on here when you hear it. Think Along with Mad. Yes, this is Mad Magazine, and that is Alfred E. Newman. I had to get this one because of the song It's a Gas. And when I was doing my radio show weekly, that was the song that I always opened the show with. So I had to get a good copy of this one. This one now, because I've used it almost weekly for several years, it's getting a little torn up. I'd love to get a new copy of this one, but it's not a high priority for me. Mostly because I've got this one and I can still listen to it. It still plays okay, but it would be nice to get a new copy of that one. Next on the list, the last album you purchased. Well, not 1 year ago, more like 3 years ago, I saw a video on YouTube of someone doing music with a marble machine. You've probably seen it. It went kind of viral when it came out. It's just the machine out on the set on a white background, and the guy comes in and he starts cranking it, and you hear the song, and it's the Marble Machine song from Winter Gatan. And now he's doing a rebuild. He's redesigning it and making a new marble machine. So he's releasing a whole bunch of videos, and this is my way to help support in that project. I just bought a copy of the record. It came last month. This record is very similar to the Marble Machine song. It also was shipped with a small CD EP that I didn't grab, but that was a lot of fun too. It has very similar music. Check out Winter Gatan on YouTube, and if you can, throw him a couple bucks to get the new machine. As soon as he's got it up to a point where it's reliable, he's going on a world tour, and I'm hoping I can see that when he's out. If he comes around here, or even if he gets to Chicago or Milwaukee, I'm going to try to see him. So the next on the list, an album that they don't get. I don't have a lot of albums that other people really don't get that I get, so I had to go with one that I also don't quite get. Lenny Bruce. The real Lenny Bruce is this record. It's gatefold. So just... there we go. A lot of information on the inside. I listened to this one a little bit after watching the first couple of episodes of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, because Lenny Bruce is actually a character in that show. I didn't remember having any of his records, but then looking through what I've got, I found that one and started listening to it. And yeah, it's in front of a live audience and people are laughing, but it's curse word, topical joke, topical joke, topical joke, topical joke, curse word. It just didn't quite do it for me, and I'm not sure. It's probably just that I didn't know what was going on at the time to fit in. And I skipped over one from the list. But it's one that I don't get, and I know a lot of other people don't get. Lenny Bruce is kind of hard to understand on the first listen. You really got to listen to him a few times, and you got to know what's going on. So I just mentioned I skipped one, and that's a girl group. So right after the EP that I showed with Julie Brown, girl group, I had a little bit of trouble. My first thought collecting 80s alternative was, of course, the Go-Go's, but I don't have any other records. However, I do have the Andrews Sisters. So I do collect jazz, a lot of old jazz, and I started collecting with 1920s through the 40s jazz. And the Andrews Sisters is one that everyone knows, and even if the orchestra behind them wasn't necessarily a girl group, they're known as a girl group. So that's my selection there. And then one more thing to show off, a punk album or the closest thing you've got. punk musicians usually don't do comedy and novelty, but some of them do, like the Dead Milkmen. I got this one specifically for the last track on the album, Life is S-Hit, as I heard some radio people saying it. This is definitely one that I could not play on my radio show, but I had to have it anyway. So, the Dead Milkmen, Beelzebubba, released in 1988 on Fever Records. This one says printed in Canada, so it's a Canadian release. So even more fun. And then the last question on the list is a favorite 2020 reissue. Well, for 2020, I was doing almost no shopping for my collection, really coming back to it once we passed the November election. So I wasn't paying attention to what was being released in 2020. I don't have any reissues that were pressed in 2020. So I'm going to take a pass on that question because I don't have an idea of what I can put on there. So there's my answers for the 2021 vinyl tag. I know it's a month or two late, but like I said, with the first video yesterday, it's coming out as quickly as I can. So here we go, one day later. So that's what I've got. What are your comments? What do you think of those? Let me know down in the comments below, and see you next time.